Hello everybody, CephalonKet here. So, 7.2 is now out, Laugh Day is on, we have beautiful decorations in the fleet, but also with 7.2, gearing has changed again. Not as much as with previous updates, but there have been some changes to the system and some additions to again perhaps make things easier for a lot of people. So, this we will go through the systems once again real fast. If there is information missing, feel free to check out my previous gearing videos that go through the previous systems in depth. Just keep in mind that the numbers have now been updated. So, for example, before we could get to I rating 330 with our armor, but with the new update we can go up to 336. Operation players can go to a higher number, 340 I believe. And the difference also is that for our implants this time, if we're using legendary implants, we are still at 334. There hasn't been an update to increase their rating, so keep that in mind when it comes to that. You will not find yourself being able to go above 334. It's the same as 7.1. But for everything else, we can go up to 336 when it comes to players that play solo content. That means players that use the conquest gear, which, as we've talked about, is the weakest gear when it comes to stat distribution, because they focus more on giving you health rather than power. And people that play flashpoints also will be able to go to 336. For people that play solo but still want to get the best gear possible, like with my previous video, I recommend following the flashpoint route, but this time we have a workaround for solo players. So this is the cool thing about 7.2. They added another system where solo players will be able to more easily get flashpoint gear. So what changed? So they added vendors that will allow you to more easily upgrade, but what we care about here when it comes to flashpoint gear is that in the conquest gear vendor here on the fleet, we have two new bags we can buy. One is for 200 tech fragments for 200 conquest commendations, but the more interesting bag when it comes to upgrading our I rating is the bag of 200 FP1 stabilizers. That is the flashpoint currency, which can be exchanged for 500 conquest commendations. And with this bag, we are basically able to very easily, if we have flashpoint gear equipped, for example, this Supreme Decurion relic here, if I had enough, I could go to the flashpoint gear upgrade vendor here.
Nice to see customers.
And upgrade it this way. So I am able to completely skip farming flashpoints like with 7.1. As we can see, another great change is that if for some reason, though I don't recommend it, but if for some reason you don't want to touch any of the flashpoints, any of the weeklies, you don't want to touch master flashpoints, you really don't want to go through with that, you can still, through the farming method, with the bags you can buy, you can still slowly make your way with buying the Supreme Decurion gear from scratch from the vendor. For the first time in 7.2, you can buy the base gear. The minimum is now 324, so that's also a jump in stats, which is nice. And you could potentially work your way that way without even having to touch flashpoints. But touching the flashpoints and perhaps getting the weekly box will allow you to also have a jump in stats that way. So you have multiple ways to go. With 7.1, we were like, okay, you need to do some master flash points, there's no way around it, and then go slowly to 330. And it was actually not really worth it to upgrade the items manually because it was very, very expensive. But now, due to being able to buy the currency, the flashpoint currency, it actually becomes quite doable, especially if you have multiple characters where you get the conquest done. So you are able to get a lot of conquest commendations. And if you are not bothered with conquest gear, which if you're watching this video, probably you are not interested, or as we say, you shouldn't be interested if you care about getting the maximum, the best stat retribution. So if you have a lot of conquest commendations to spare, it's perfect to just spend the conquest commendations to get the plus point currency and manually upgrade it on the vendor here. Of course, you can just keep doing what we were doing in 7.1 to do it through the flashpoint weekly. Nothing is stopping you. If you enjoy it, if 7.1 made you check out flashpoints and now you love it, just keep doing it that way. But this allows us to once again make the progress faster. For me personally, for example, again, what day is it? The update came out on Tuesday, it is now Friday, and I'm at rating 335. With 0 farming, I have done no flashpoint so far. So this 335 is with no farming whatsoever, just by spending my conquest commendations. You will notice once again that I'm using the modding method to bypass some farming as well, which we will briefly talk about again in this video. It was a big part and a big relief when it comes to farming in 7.1, and it continues to be a thing in 7.2, which is great. So the same thing when it comes to the currency happens with operation gear. If you are subscribed, if you are able to do operations, you can also, if you have gotten some operation gear, you can slowly upgrade it through the vendor here. But of course, since we are not able to buy the operation currency, upgrading is very, very slow. So, up to you if you want to go down that path. It is the best gear available. And only if you do the new operation, the R4 anomaly operation, you will be able to go above 336. The normal operations cannot go above 336, only the new R4 anomaly can go above 336. Keep that in mind. So once again, solo players and players that touch flashpoints, we are able to go to 336, and the best we can do if we touch flashpoints or if we touch flashpoint gear by buying them through the vendor. The Supreme Decurion, which originally came from master flashpoints, is the best we can do without touching operation gear. And now with 7.2, it's even easier for people that don't want to do a lot of master flashpoints. It's the best we can do as solo players. So once again, to revamp, solo players now have access to the Supreme Decurion gear if they want, but in order to get them, they will have to at least exchange all their conquest gear
Can I get you anything?
for bags of 200 FP1 stabilizers from the vendor in the fleet. By purchasing from the vendor on the fleet, they will be able to slowly upgrade their flashpoint gear, even by not touching flashpoints manually. So we have more options. Fantastic. So once again, to touch on the modding that was added in 7.1, which, as you saw before, it's what I personally use because I have a lot of credits to spare, and it's just a great way to have more control into your stat retribution. Hide and seek here allow you to get a mission where if you deconstruct a piece of 336 gear, let's see if I have one. Yeah, so briefly touching this again, just like in my previous video, you talk to Hide here, blah 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 blah. Let's get to business modifications. Okay, so I have done this mission, but what you're looking for is the 336 prototype modification quest. Let's say this said prototype. I click that. You get a quest over here. It will say prototype. You have to deconstruct from your inventory. And in my case, if I had the prototype version of the quest, keep in mind, I would take this item, my 336 blue item, prototype is blue, and I would deconstruct it. When I deconstruct it, the quest would update, and this vendor here, Zeke, will have the new mods here. The blue prototype mods for 336 are the 103, and if you have a lot of credits to spare, I believe it's 2 million credits for a full set, you are able to bypass the majority of the farming by just using adaptive gear and putting the mods into your armor that way. So another great way, and another way the game gives you more options in how you go about it. So just like before, we are able to mod our adaptive gear, get all of that to 336 through modding, and then either once again do flashpoint weeklies or the box at the end and from the bosses to get blue Supreme Decurion, or now with 7.2 you can buy the blue Supreme Decurion from the vendor, and by exchanging your conquest commendations for FP1 stabilizers from this vendor here, you can slowly upgrade the Supreme Decurion that you buy from scratch. Here, you can upgrade it manually that way.
Customers. Can I get you anything?
So personally, I really like it. Of course, I would have loved it even more if perhaps for even more conquest commendations, maybe 1,000 conquest commendations, if we could exchange some of our conquest commendations for the operation currency, so we could eventually also have the even better operation gear that way. But I understand operation is, you know, the big group content. It is also locked behind a subscription, so it makes sense that we are not able to bypass the farming that way. But yes, so once again, if you have the legendary implants, the gold here, you are not able to upgrade from the vendor above 334. I imagine it will be added in an update, because we were highly encouraged to use legendary implants, so to be missing on I rating doesn't make a lot of sense, so we'll see how it goes. So to summarize, 7.2 keeps most of the systems of 7.1, but added even more options for you to upgrade your gear, and also for solo players it added more ways for you to get the best possible gear for you. That is the blue Supreme Decurion gear that we originally could only get from Master Flashpoints. We are now able to get the currency by converting conquest commendations for the FP1 stabilizers and upgrade it that way. And we also still have the modding available from hide and seek by deconstructing one piece of blue 336 gear that you can either have upgraded manually through the vendor that we just talked about, or by using the flashpoint weekly method perhaps, and that way you will have access to 336 modding to allow yourself to bypass most of the grinding. A small note as well, PvP gear is still nerfed. We cannot go to 336 with our PvP gear. You can potentially use PvP still to bypass some of the grinding when you are at a lower I rating. However, eventually PvP gear becomes useless. Its only use is to once again use the purple 332 to get the hide and seek mission to deconstruct 332 artifact modifications and then deconstruct your 332 purple gear from PvP. They have no other use at this time. They stay at a lower I rating. I don't believe that it's really worth it to stay at a lower I rating, but if you find that a point or two of power is increased in the purple 332, up to you how you build your how you make your build. But yes, PvP gear has stayed nerfed to avoid the tricks that people like me had found, where we could just use the Starfighter weekly, for example, to quickly go to the maximum I rating at the time and actually be at purple I rating, which was the best at the time. So they still are persevering when it comes to the nerfing there. PvP still weak. So that is the information that I have gathered when it comes to gearing in 7.2. I would say that things are looking pretty good when it comes to options available for everybody. I really appreciate that now they are still allowing solo players to use the flashpoint gear, the blue flashpoint gear, which is the best. They have not added more nerfs like they did with PvP. So I say we because I also consider myself a solo player, even though I dabble in flashpoints now and then. So we are still able to get the best possible gear, and we now can have an easier time doing it by giving us more options on how we spend our let's call it solo currency, which is the conquest commendation currency. So yes, I hope you enjoyed. I hope this was clear. If any of the systems that were previously touched upon, like hide and seek, the flashpoint weekly, how the PvP farming went, if that was not very clear for you in this video, let me know. But also feel free to give my previous gearing videos a watch. Just like I said, keep in mind that the numbers have now increased, so the numbers in those videos are updated. However, I do go more in depth when it comes to those specific systems. So yes, let me know what you thought. Let me know what you think of the 7.2 gearing system. Are you coming to terms with it? Because I know that it is still the biggest change when it comes to gearing we've had in a long while. And I think they are trying, without completely going back, to make it as friendly as possible, slowly but surely. So let me know what you think. Let me know as well what you thought of this video. Please consider supporting me by subscribing to the channel if you haven't, liking, commenting, and also I stream on Twitch almost every day, so give me a follow if you'd like. Catch me live, we can chat. I like having people to chat with while I stream, so yeah, that'd be nice. Alright, so thank you for watching. That's all for now, and I'll see you later. Bye bye.